So this is where we get to the part of the evening where you walk out burning all the technology. All right? We are a pro-tech company. We just wanted to use it the right way. There are people who want to use technology because of its pervasiveness to bring harm to children. There have been people wanting to harm students and harm society, I don't know, since Cain and Abel. And so this isn't anything new. It's just that it's now so much more available. We walk around with internet-connected cameras that happen to make phone calls. I'll share with you a little bit. This is why I do what I do. Because I'm a husband, I'm a father. My wife Rose and I were high school sweethearts. In fact, my mother-in-law changed my diapers in the church nursery. Absolutely no secrets. Her dad's parents, I called Grandma and Grandpa ever since I can remember. We started dating in high school. In May, we will be married 17 years. And over those 17 years, we've had the opportunity to add 4 children to our household through a couple different ways. Cheyenne and Ryan joined our family in 2010. I went from youth pastor to dad in a matter of 6 days. Cheyenne had just finished 6th grade when their caretaker, Cheyenne and Ryan are biologically cousins, but raised by Ryan's mom. She died at the age of 37, and they needed a home. So we said, move in with us. So Ryan has now lived in our house longer than he didn't. We have a few more years before we get to that stage with Cheyenne. We have another 3 years before that. But Ryan he was 9, and they've been in our house 9 years. So in 2010, we added a 12 and a 9-year-old. And then in 2015, God chose to give us JD, Joshua Douglas. In fact, having biological children was not something that we actually sought, which sounds weird. There's a lot of kids who need a home. So we thought we'd just add them to our family. But God said, now that you've done that, here's a blessing. And he gave us JD, Joshua Douglas. And then Silas. Silas will be 2 next month. JD loves football and cheeseburgers. He loves to tackle and wrestle. In fact, he is 4.5 and is about this tall on me now. So he's grown even more since this picture was taken. I tell him I hope to be taller than him when he's 10. That's my goal. I don't know if I'm even going to make it that long. He's almost 100th percentile in both height and weight. And he's just a big dude. And then Silas is kind of more average, so he seems like, I don't know, a little doll. Because JD weighs 50 pounds, Silas weighs 25. And but this is my family. This is why I do what I do. I want as a husband and as a father to protect my family. To honor my God, to serve my family. And so when we look at this, we see that the instructions that we have from the book of Proverbs saying you need to direct your children on the right path, and when they're older, they'll not leave it. And so Protect Young Eyes, we were an organization that started just a handful of years ago. This is that crazy part of it. None of us are full-time. Yet in 5 years, we've had a national spread. That even in the last couple of months, we've had presentations in more than one country on both coasts. It's nuts. It's nuts. So what do? Well, we have a variety of things that we do. We do live talks like this. And for those of you that are in education in public schools, we do the exact same thing, except you don't see any of the Bible verses. I'm a public school kid. I graduated from Rockford High School. If I couldn't get into the public schools, man, settling short. People who are never going to come and walk in. Again, my full-time job is a pastor, right? And so parents who would never come into a church to get counseling from a pastor line up after I talk to parents at public schools saying, hey, this, that, and the other thing. And I love that. I don't give the chapter and verse, but I quote a lot of scripture. So we do K-12 talks, public school, private school. We have a website. If you haven't ever gone, who has gone to our website before? ProtectYoungEyes.com. All right? I'm going to show you in just a second a little bit of what you're missing for those of you that haven't gone in there. We do have a newsletter that if you go to our website, it'll prompt up a window to put in your email address to sign up, and we put out information through that. We have an active blog, and so we kind of write those things and we put them out there. Again, I just make this one plug. Can you just put the email that you actually check and not the one you use to get free cake on your birthday? I'd be good with that. All right? We value the content we put out there, and so we don't flood your email box with junk. We give you stuff that we believe is helpful for parents and youth leaders, all right? In-class curriculum, that's a faith-based curriculum. We have at-home discussion guides. We have professional development that it counts toward your professional development for your teacher certification licensing. We do that as well. And so this is kind of a look into, oh goodness, I hit the wrong button. There we go. This is kind of a look into our website. If again you go to our website, this is we have our blog. All of these things, especially when you see these images like this on the presentation, you'll know that that's a reference to one of our blog posts. And so these are things that we write about. A lot of our work is on parental controls and helping parents realize how to set things up. We do a lot, and you'll also see app reviews that we do. Anytime we actually have somebody on staff that is a researcher, and every week we get tech updates. Our staff gets tech updates of apps that are kind of rising up the charts. So if there's an app that was like 28th last week, but it's 7th this week, why did all of a sudden that many more people download it? Was it just localized, or is it something that's national? Do we need to write a review on it? How do we go about doing these kinds of things? And so wanting to make certain that we also show you how to set up parental controls on any smart or internet-connected device. And we just last month went through and made certain that all of these things were updated. And so, in fact, what you're looking at, our website looks mostly like this. We've updated some of the look of how we do some of our things. But again, wanting to make certain that you have what you need to be able to make certain that you can make wise decisions when it comes to parenting your kids and their use of technology. Because I don't know about you, but it's a little overwhelming keeping up with that stuff. If you think of the amount of hours that just one organization puts in on a weekly basis, you don't have that time as a parent because there's other stuff going on. That's where we step in. Our website is free. Please use it. Grandparents, don't think that you're beyond this because you're not raising kids anymore. Did you know that your house is one of the 5 most dangerous places for kids to be online? It's most likely that you don't have a lot of the parameters set up on your routers. You don't have filtering, you don't have monitoring, you don't have this, you don't have that. I would be surprised if my grandma even knew you could get porn on her internet. She just turned 90. She FaceTimes on her iPad. When she first got Facebook, she was like, Doug, how do they know that I want to see all of these pictures? Well, Grandma, that's Facebook. That's your news feed. I know, but how do they know that all these people know that I want to see what they're doing? Grandma, the internet's crazy, isn't it? I'm not going to help explain this to her. That's all right. She doesn't have to understand how all of these things show up on her iPad. So as we think through these kinds of things, we want to make certain that you are connected, and there's a variety of ways that you can follow us. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on Pinterest, we're on Twitter. If you text the word PROTECT to 66866, it'll prompt you to put in your email address, which is the same kind of thing that it does on our website. This isn't as public because there's still a couple of bugs that we're working out. We have to resubmit it, but we have an app that we just launched. On both Android and Apple. So that allows you to have app access to a lot of the stuff that you can find on the internet, on our website. And so we want to make certain that we are available to parents. I want to give you a little bit of insight into what it looked like for us to sit in the Senate Judiciary Committee just this last July. So this is about a 5 to 6 minute video, that's a lot of time in a presentation like this where I only have about an hour, but it's important enough because I want you to hear. This is Chris, our CEO and founder and close friend. Actually, he was middle school pastor of Cornerstone Church for a while, just, again, used to be like literally across the intersection, but now we have to go all the way to 84th Street. This is Chris, and I want you to hear what we're seeing and what we're trying to do on a national level.
Good morning, Chairman Graham, Senator Blumenthal, members of the committee. Thank you so much for allowing all of us this opportunity to speak today. I cannot think of a more noble cause for all of us to be spending our time on than the safety and protection of our children. I began Protect Young Eyes 5 years ago because the internet is complex, and even diligent parents are overwhelmed by the digital choices their children are facing. Through thousands of hours of research, hundreds of presentations at schools around the country, and dozens of articles examining digital trends, we have witnessed both the wonderful potential and the troubling and pervasive darkness that exists in the pockets of millions of young people today. I'm certain that in the course of today's discussion, we will hear difficult stories. I wish they were uncommon. In March 2019, CNN reported that Instagram was the leading social media platform for child grooming by sexual predators. Our own test accounts quickly discovered that young people, particularly young girls, can be hunted like prey. We started an Instagram account with 2 photos and tried to mimic the behavior of an average teen girl. We posted 2 selfies with 3 hashtags each, searched a few hashtags, and liked a few photos. Within a week, we had dozens of men sending us images of their genitals, telling us they were horny, and sending us hardcore pornography through direct messages. Even after we told all of them that we were only 12, they were relentless. A recent poll of 2,000 teens found that nearly 75% of them had received pornographic direct messages from strangers on Instagram, even if they had a private account. But you won't find any warnings in the App Store descriptions for Instagram that mention anything about sexual predators, direct message risks, sex trafficking, or hardcore pornography. Instagram's defaults are not set for child safety or data privacy, even though Instagram is rated 12+ by Apple and 13+ by Google. At Protect Young Eyes, we've also seen firsthand the predatory symbiotic relationship that exists between Instagram and Snapchat, both used by 75% of teens today. Many Instagram predators quickly shuttle kids over to Snapchat, where evidence disappears. For example, one relentless pedophile on Instagram who calls himself Daddy invites young girls to join him in Snapchat with Instagram posts like 12+-year-old slave girls, obedient whores only, or hit me up on Snap to be daddy's naughty girl. Snapchat is where explicit content on Pornhub lives just seconds away from every user through backdoors within the app. The app knowingly allows a well-documented list of porn performers to make thousands of dollars daily through their premium Snap accounts. Snapchat is where harmless-looking face filters can encourage kids to share their location on Snap Map. It's the app that gave a Coors Beer ad to 13-year-olds, even though they tout age gating. It's the app where every kid, regardless of age, has access to the Discover News section, where they are taught how to engage in risky sexual behaviors such as hookup, group, anal, or torture sex, how to sell drugs, and how to hide internet activity from parents using incognito mode. But again, you won't find anything in Snapchat's App Store descriptions that warn parents about premium Snapchat accounts, predator risks of using Snap Maps, or the hyper-sexualized content in Discover News. Snapchat is rated 12+ by Apple and 13+ by Google. Tech companies will tell us that ratings are already in place. However, ratings are not uniform, lack transparency, and there's little accountability for inaccurate ratings. For example, Twitter was rated 4+ for a decade, even though hardcore porn and prostitution was everywhere. It is still breaking Apple and Google's no porn policy, but only claims infrequent or mild sexual content in the app description. Netflix is rated 4+ in Apple's App Store, but teen in Google Play. VPNs, which allow teens to circumvent parental controls, are rated 4+. Most social media platforms are rated 12+ by Apple, even though COPPA restricts use by children until age 13. Obviously, the current app ratings process is broken. Tech companies will tell us that protecting kids is a parent's responsibility. However, this position ignores the ubiquitous nature of the internet. Even if I do everything right to protect my own 14-year-old daughter, with almost 90% of teens owning a smart device, a simple ride on the bus or a visit to a friend's house can expose her to life-altering content. Never before in human history have young people had the ability to so radically change the trajectory of each other's lives so quickly. Tech companies will tell us that safeguards are already in place, but it currently takes over 30 steps to properly set up parental controls on an iPhone. We need to simplify this process to help more parents protect their children. For example, better age-based defaults would instantly and easily protect millions of kids. The addition of easy controls over school and bedtime could shut off distracting apps during these very critical times. Tech companies will tell us that regulating apps is too big of a job. It can't be done. However, video games are already successfully doing it, and the ESRB shows us a path that could be applied by reasonable individuals to apps. In fact, it was Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook who recently said, "I believe we need more effective role for governments and regulators." And we agree. Our hope is to create safer digital places for young people. 2 simple solutions could change everything. First, create a uniform, independent, and accountable rating system for apps. And second, enact better defaults based on the age provided during device and app setup. Let's fix this for the kids. Thank you, and I look forward to answering your questions.
So that's all. It's just everywhere. So, as we think through these kinds of things and trying to help parents when it comes to what is a good kind of pattern of parenting look like, and as youth leaders, these kinds of things, how do we wrestle through this? Well, here's a couple of things that I'd like to challenge you to think through. 1, to be a part of the curiosity of your kid. There's going to be curiosity that your kid is wanting to mess around with these apps and figure things out, but there's also that other side where you can flip and say, hey, I don't know anything about this. Can you show me? How many times do their kids get to be the teachers? They know something mom and dad don't know? Sure. Having open conversations. Cheyenne joined our family when she was 12. She was maybe 13 or 14 when she came to me and said, "Dad, what's erectile dysfunction?" Like, all right, honey, you want to know? Yeah. I'm sure she saw a Viagra or a Cialis commercial somewhere. They're on everything. I was like, all right. Do you know what dysfunction is? I said, it means something doesn't function the way that it's supposed to. All right, it's broken. Honey, do you know what an erection is? No. Well, that's when a man's penis, she's like, hold on a second. She ran to her bedroom, came back with a teddy bear, plugged the teddy bear's ears and said, okay, go ahead. And I went on to describe what are some of the root causes of erectile dysfunction. I'm going to answer why, because I want to be there before Google. I work hard to be in the top 3 resources that my kids go to. And I'm failing with one of them, but I'm succeeding with the other 3. Ryan, again, he's an independent young man. He's going to figure things out on his own. Then he comes to Dad and finds out that he probably should have asked him earlier. Co-play. Play along with your kids. Figure out the apps. Create an account. The ones that, because again, as you're getting into it and you're seeing these kinds of things, now you have a better idea of what it is they're interacting with. Is there open chatting within the app? What kind of violence is there? Is there any sexual content? What about language? What about the being able to talk with other players over headphones? So the game is fine, but the people talking into the game are awful. Figure it out. Just go ahead, and as parents, God gave them to you. And the non-parent youth workers in the room, we celebrate that. Mom and dad, you're the chief disciplers of your children. Do not outsource that critical piece. Use the resources of people who love students and love Jesus more than them. Use the resources of great education and other faith-based organizations, but please use them as your guided and directing your children. God gave them to you. Setting up caring controls, and then modeling the behavior you want to see in your kids. What we end up seeing many times is in these conversations, instead of working alongside the curiosity and trying to direct that, there's shame involved. And instead of talking about it, there's silence. Think of the sex talk you had with your parents, if you had it. Probably lasted as long as that gap of just silence, right? Our virtual lives are, my kids' virtual life and my virtual life are totally separate. They never interact. Or I go spying on my kids. I don't let them know that I'm following them. I don't let them know that I know them. And I do all this other stuff instead of having very just open conversations. You have a smart device in my house, I know the login information and I check it on a weekly basis. And then also, smart technology allows for so much secret activity. So what's the right age to talk about pornography with my kid? Curious, what would you say? What's the right age to start talking about porn to your kids? Okay, as soon as they get a device, all right? But what if their friends have devices? What if they ride a school bus? Another one of the 5 most dangerous places for kids to be online. Now, I don't use the term pornography when I'm talking to kindergartners. We talk about good pictures and bad pictures, though. We talk about if anybody ever sends you a picture on your device that makes you feel uncomfortable or is scary or is inappropriate, then you put the device down and you tell someone. In fact, on the back of your notebook, your note packet, the last page is a resource page. One of JD's favorite books to read is that first one, Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, Junior. I've already had conversations of who's allowed to see and touch my son's genitals. He knows it's called a penis, and that's the word he uses, and it's my favorite when it comes out in public. It's not Mr. Willie, it's not PP, it's not whatever name you want to give to it, it's a penis. All right? And it makes me smile in my heart how many times I've said the word penis in churches around the country. But how do we have these conversations with our kids? Some of the stigma has to be erased. Some of the awkwardness, Mom, Dad, you just got to swallow it and deal with it. So when your 13-year-old daughter asks about erectile dysfunction, you don't say, go ask your mom. Or you Google it. No, right? Psalm 119:37 says, turn my eyes from worthless things and give me life through your word. So when you think through some of these things, how to block porn on any device for free, we show you how to do it. This is one of our blog posts. Want to know how to do it? follow it step by step. We have screenshots all over, and arrows and circles and all this stuff, so that if you're low tech, you can still figure it out. So I'm going to talk through the couple of statistics that we've seen. 27%. You want to guess what this is? Good guess. No, but good guess. This is the amount of content on the internet that is considered explicit. So think of your coffee table in your living room, 4 magazines, one's Playboy. For those of you who have unfiltered, unmonitored internet access, all right, kids, go ahead, do some reading. Mommy's going to go take a shower. So we have to think of these kinds of things. And what's crazy is what we're also seeing is kids are interacting with porn so much earlier. So whoever said that the number of kids who've seen porn before being age 10, what we're seeing is modeling and copying behavior, which is so much of what is true about 3 to 7-year-olds. You get to see what mom and dad are like just by watching the kid, because their mannerisms, their conversations, their expressions, all these things usually are things that they've heard at home. But also what ends up happening is that mimicking behavior also finds itself on child sexual assault. In fact, my wife was abused as a 6-year-old by one of her neighbor girlfriends at a slumber party. Likely that young lady also had a pretty terrible first sexual experience. And this was what's interesting. This article at Kansas City Children's Hospital started seeing more and more sexual assault cases being attributed to peers of children. Not the shady uncle, not the person down the street, their classmates. So have you had the right conversations with your kids? 81,055. The number of videos viewed and the amount of time it took for me to say 81,055 on YouTube. Every second, 81,055 videos are uploaded to YouTube and viewed. So do you have YouTube under control? Did you even know that you could? There's a blog post on how to do that. But yeah, YouTube Kids exists though, so that's probably fine then, right? Where the kids are is where the predators are. It was true about the creepy dude in the park. It's true about the common sites and apps that kids use. So, mom and dad, you have those set up. If not, our website can help you on how to do that. So we're going to look through some digital trends that we're seeing. Digital trend number 1, the ubiquity of technology means there's no such thing as tech-free. You think that you're raising a tech-free home. My kids don't have an iPad, they don't have an iPod, they don't have a smart device, they don't have anything. And then you're not going to get one until 8th grade. Okay, that's great, that's fine. But 90% of students have Snapchat in middle school and high school. So if your kid doesn't have it, someone else's kid probably does. And what's interesting is you cannot control all the digital risk impacting your kids. You just got to accept that, all right? Something bad's going to happen. It just is. So leave the ignorance of the land of if. Your child will see or do something on a digital device that you don't want them to. So are you ready for all the digital whens? Again, on all of the smart devices in my home, I have monitoring and filtering. And one of the accountability software that I use is called Covenant Eyes, which, full disclosure, Chris now works for Covenant Eyes. All right, that's his full-time gig. But every website that my account is attached to, a report gets sent to my wife and my dad. At one point, my son, who had just moved schools, we kept them in the school that they were in for the first 2 years after they moved into our family, but then we moved them into district. My son trying to learn new kids and make new friends. Some of the boys like, hey, you got to look this up. So he looked some stuff up. Because of some sexual stuff and harm that he endured as a child, that was horrible for him to see. And it was even more horrible when he found out that mom, dad, and grandpa knew that he did it. So we had to have a conversation, and through tears, have that conversation with him. But it's the whens, not the ifs, that we have to be working through. So, think through all the stuff that you would hate your kid to have happen to them and figure out a way to talk to them about that on their level. It can be done. And these are our kids that we're talking about, so they're probably worth the time invested in trying to figure that out, and to prayerfully figure that out, to ask organizations like Protect Young Eyes, ask other parents that you've seen model some of this, and ask, what are you doing? It seems like your kids are understanding some of this stuff. How do you figure it out together? So then we work through, what's the right age then for your kid to have social media? Thoughts? None. I'm glad you're here. So COPA, the Child Online Privacy Protection Act, all right, which is that's saying that you cannot collect information about anybody under the age of 13. So that's why Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, you have to be 13 years old to get it. Now, there's no age verification process, so when I tell some students, like, hey, the same thing that allows you as a 12-year-old girl to pretend that you're a 15-year-old girl allows me as a 38-year-old man to pretend to be a 15-year-old girl. There's no verification of anything. So, again, COPA says 13. With this article, we kind of help you process through what are some things. What about your kids' curiosity? What about their friends' status? Do they have a lot of friends? Do they have not a lot of friends? What's their, are their JD was the obedient, really not super curious kid. Don't open the cupboards. He walked past. Silas, don't open the cupboards. Why? What's in there? Right? And you have kids that are on different ends of that spectrum as well. It's just how that goes. And so Silas, it's going to be a different internet experience for him than it is going to be for JD with some of the rules that we have. Well, that's not fair. You're treating your children differently. Absolutely. I don't remember anywhere in Scripture that thou shalt be fair when parenting thine children. Train up your child in the way they should go, so when they're old they won't depart from it. That's what it says. Trend number 2. Most of the apps your kids like were designed for addiction and not for safety. Don't believe me? In a second you're going to hear from the founding president of Facebook and their intentions when they created Facebook. Safety doesn't pay the bills. Apps are designed for exploitation, not protection. How can we quantify and then make money off of this information? So you have to think of the development then, the brain. There are ways that our brain functions. And it's not by accident that these apps work. You think of Snapchat. How many of you as parents or student leaders have a Snapchat account? Raise your hand. Okay, if you have a child that has Snapchat, your hand needs to be raised by next Sunday. The Snap streak is how many days in a row that you interact with another user on Snapchat. All right? And what that does then is that gets a user to use the app every day because they want to keep the streak going. Like what we saw Jaden in the video. 3.5 years with somebody he doesn't even know. There was one kid that I met out in Eastern Oregon again who charged a fee for when his friends got grounded from their phones, that he would log in and keep their streaks going. Brilliant. I was like, dude, you get to be 17, 18 years old. We'll get back in contact. I have some business I want to work over with you. Right? Then all the kids in the school felt foolish for doing that for free when they could have been charging their friends. But again, it's addictive by design. And what's interesting is this thing isn't necessarily unique to Snapchat. You don't have to raise your hand, but I'm sure some of you in this room either have been or know someone who's been through a 12-step program. You get your 25-day pin, your 100-day coin. Why? Because streaks are powerful. They just took the way that your brain already works and put it into their app environment. So again, it's not that bad kids are making bad choices online. It's more often that good kids are using apps with bad features they're just not ready to handle. Here's Sean Parker.
Sean Parker says he's not sure how much Facebook is benefiting society. Parker was the founding president of Facebook when the company started over a decade ago. He recently made some very jarring comments about social media exploiting the vulnerabilities in human psychology during a conversation with Axios. Here's what he had to say.
You know, if the thought process that went into building these applications, Facebook being the first of them to really understand it, that thought process was all about how do we consume as much of your time and conscious attention as possible. And that means that we need to sort of give you a little dopamine hit every once in a while because someone liked or commented on a photo or a post or whatever. And that's going to get you to contribute more content, and that's going to get you, more likes and comments. I mean, it's a social validation feedback loop that it's like it's exactly the kind of thing that a hacker like myself would come up with, because you're exploiting a vulnerability in human psychology. And I think that the inventors, creators, and it's me, it's Mark, it's the Kevin Systrom at Instagram, it's all of these people, understood this consciously, and we did it anyway.
All right, let me just close my Facebook page right now. He's making me feel bad. Parker also said that social media, quote, probably interferes with productivity in weird ways. God only knows what it is doing to our children's brains.
What did he call himself? A hacker. The newscast people called him an entrepreneur. He's like, no, I got a better title. And he points at his head when he says it, that a hacker like myself would come up with. So what do? Well, Mom and Dad, it's a tough conversation. We like to employ what we call the 7-day rule. Now, the 7-day rule goes like this. Before your child is allowed to download an app on their device, and yes, you can set up app stores to do this. Before they're allowed to download an app on their device, you get to download it onto your device and mess around with it for a week. Figure out what it does. Maybe you do like what we did and create a profile the same age and gender of your child. See what it's going to look like for them. Because as a 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80-year-old person, it may act differently for you than it does for someone who says they're 14. Figure it out. And then make a decision, yay or nay. Because once they have the app, once they have the profile and the account, it's going to be a whole lot harder to take it away than it is to give it in the first place. In those 7 days, read our app review. Wrestle through this. Because again, this is something that is going to influence your child's view of the world and of themselves over the next probably 3 to 4 years. So it better be a welcomed guest, followed up by a lot of visits, questions, conversations. Maybe make a rule you can have an account as long as I can follow you. And then you have to ask and have the conversations, well, do you have more than one account then? Because I'm following this one, but you have 3 other accounts you have I had no idea that you had. And so when we think about the kinds of apps, anybody know what this app is? Roblox. Roblox, this is like the coolest community building game for 4 to 10-year-olds. Some kids older than that still play it, but it's that kind of elementary school. The kids love this game. Remember I said where the kids are is where the predators are? Roblox allows for chat within the game. So a conversation similar to, hey, I really like that building you're doing. Yeah, it's blue, it's my favorite color. Oh, really? Why is that? Well, I'm a Michigan fan. Oh, really? You live in Michigan? So do I. Oh, really? Yeah. And I can be on my computer on the other side. Okay, Michigan. What's a popular Michigan? Okay, boom, boom, okay. Have you ever been to the Ford Museum? What's that? Oh, okay. Well, maybe it's in Grand Rapids. Oh, I don't live in Grand Rapids. I live in Sheboygan. Oh, Sheboygan. What's in that? Oh, okay. And all the while, here's a kid who has no idea that he's talking to somebody who's fishing for information. This is just another friend who's building in Roblox. So we tell little kids, if you don't know them off the internet, you don't talk to them on the internet. Oh, I hit the wrong button again. So again, I don't tell first graders there are sexual predators out there, boys and girls. I'm not going to introduce that term. I am going to say there's tricky people. All apps with a chat feature will always have predatory activity. Roblox, the Fitbit app, all of them. If you can chat, it's going to be used for predatory activity. So then, does your son or daughter know how to walk away from a nice predator? Because again, they aren't creepy hooded dude. So again, we have to give our kids permission not to talk to nice people they don't know online. Because what's hard is we work so hard for them to be polite. How do you interact with your kid when you're introducing them to one of your friends or somebody that they don't know? They may be a friend to you, but they're still a stranger to this kid. Tell them your name. Oh, my name is JD. Oh, okay. Hey, JD, how old are you? He asked you a question, JD, you need to answer. I'm 4.5. And what they're not realizing is there's a disconnect between when mom and dad are telling you about this and when I'm online in an app and another person I don't know is asking me these same questions, because mom and dad said it's rude not to answer a question when I'm asked. Again, parenting in the digital age is so different from what it was for us. And some things like, oh, I never would have thought of that. I know. Neither did I. So tricky people, the new stranger danger in the digital age, a blog post that we've written. I highly encourage you to look through that. Instagram, leading social media platform for child grooming. Again, the gram is where a ton of kids are, and so if I can get you to jump from Instagram to following me on Snapchat, getting you from my public Snapchat account to my premium Snapchat account, which again is supposedly age-gated because it sits behind a credit card subscription. And to get a credit card, you have to be 18, and so there's a ton of adult content on the other side of Snapchat Premium, because to get Snapchat Premium, you had to have a credit card number. To have a credit card number, you need to be 18, so that anybody using it can have access to this content. Yet porn stars are leaving their industries, their companies, every day because they can make more on their private Snapchat accounts, controlling whatever content they want to create, charging however much they want to charge, than they ever did working for somebody else. Things like this. Again, Chris referenced this in his statement. So here again, we did a hashtag of beachwear and kiss. And look at what we're seeing in the middle of it. 30-year-old daddy, 13-plus girls, Snap, DXDDY Dom is his Snapchat account. And since we did this, Instagram has changed that you can block other people and they can't send you direct messages. But that was like 2 weeks ago. So we have to update this slide. But up until 2 weeks ago, even somebody that was set to private. So we have here, I like that. Okay, I look at, wow, there's a lot of people that are liking this picture of this boy. Oh, there's this person who liked this picture. I like this person, so I'm going to go to their account, and I'm going to tap up here, get the drop down, send message, and now I can send whatever I want. I like what I see in her profile picture. She obviously wants to see what I look like unclothed. So another blog post, 4 ways pedophiles are exploiting Instagram to groom kids. Again, you're going to hear us talk about Snapchat a lot because they've earned it. There's a reason why they wanted to meet with us in Washington, D.C. So if you don't have Snapchat, there's a lot of really fun things that are features within Snapchat. It's not all terrible. Okay, so on the left here, Snap Streaks, right? So on the left, on that side. Snap Streaks, that's how many days in a row you have a streak going. Another thing you have is a Snap Map, all right? The map there tracks where you are, and if you're not in ghost mode, which Snapchat is not by default in ghost mode, you actually have to put yourself in there. You are showing the location of you at all times. And so if I'm on Snapchat and then I see something that you're doing that I like, and as a teen girl or teen boy, you don't care who follows you. You let anybody follow you. Now I can follow you. Now if you're not in ghost mode, I can see where you spend your time, including where you live, where you go to school, where you like to hang out. Then the Discover News. If you haven't started curating the Discover News, then it's going to be feeding you what it thinks that you want to see based upon what you have set as your gender and age on your profile. And some of the stuff that goes through there, like worst period stories. Now, I have 5 siblings. 4 of them are sisters. All right? I'm the firstborn. Then it's 4 girls, and then my little brother. In a house of 5 women on their monthly cycle, and being the person who had to empty the trash in the bathrooms as part of my job, there was never a wonder when stuff was going on. Never once did I walk into a room where my mom or my sisters were swapping worst period stories. December of 97, oh my word, right? No, that's not happening. Because you don't want to talk about it. Yet, your 11-year-old daughter who's lying about her age and saying that she's 14 but hasn't had her period yet, she can read that story. Your 13-year-old son who's curious about that kind of stuff, he can read that story. And then filters. This is the thing that I love about Snapchat the most, the cool filters. I can make myself look like an ostrich. This is the coolest thing. The technology behind that blows my mind. So there's tons of fun. There's tons of innocent. There's tons of, this is how most of the kids, I mean, I'm sure something's going to take over Snapchat in the next year or two, but this is how most kids interact with one another. They don't text each other. They use Snapchat. Which if it was only a messaging app, maybe it'd be different. But it started out targeting college students for sexting. Not every kid uses Snapchat makes horrible decisions. You need to hear that. But you know if your kid is? How would you know? What patterns are already in place? Would they feel comfortable even coming in talking to you about stuff that they saw? Or are they afraid that you're going to blow up like you did last time when they shared something that was intimate? Sometimes we just have to step up and say, I am sorry. This parenting stuff is hard. I've never done it before, especially with all this stuff that's here, and I'm learning and growing. Please forgive me. I want to earn your trust back in talking through these kinds of things. As a parent, you can ask Cheyenne and Ryan, what's your dad's role in your life? They're going to say to provide, to prepare, to protect. Why? Because I told them that's my role over and over and over again. And when I disciplined them, or when I taught them, or I corrected them, or I encouraged them, it was all because I said, Cheyenne or Ryan, it's because I need to protect you, or I'm providing for you, I'm preparing you for something. That's why I'm doing this. So that even if I was inconsistent in a lot of things, they at least heard those words a lot, and so they're like, oh, Dad is at least somewhat consistent. Here's a couple of blog posts we've written on Snapchat. Go ahead and read them. This one actually went viral. This blog post crashed our website 4 times in a 24-hour period. We get usually about 8,000 to 12,000 hits on our website. We had over 1 million hits in a 24-hour period because of this one blog post. Because Cosmo After Dark was a 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. on Friday evenings, basically live streaming porn service that Snapchat allowed if you were 18 or older. We posted about it. Within 4 days, Cosmo Magazine was tweeting at us saying, we, after a trial period and because we value women, decided to pull our Cosmo After Dark feature, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, bull. Snapchat is a publicly traded company, and they started getting bad press, and it's your fault. Complete guide to the Snapchat filters. Yes, Pornhub is on Snapchat, and we show you how to get access to that. So if you are one of the parents or youth leaders in this room that struggles with pornography addiction, let the other person figure this out. Again, is it true? Is it pure? Digital trend number 3. Parents are still the key in whether or not kids learn to use technology well. Our actions, our patterns, our behaviors, our rules, our love, all of these things are part of creating a healthy relationship with social media. Because someday your kids are going to leave the house, and they are going to have all of these accounts. And if you haven't given them the ability to say no to some of these things and grow those muscles of putting aside and fighting against temptation, once it's all available to them, they're going to fall hard. So Ryan as a 13-year-old had different rules than Ryan as a 17-year-old, and now that he's 18, almost 19, he has different rules now. Why? Because he's a big boy and he needs to learn how to do this on his own. By the power of the indwelling Holy Spirit and his love for his Lord, he needs to do these things, not because his dad said yes or no. So we have to ask the question then, would we want our kids using devices just like we do? In fact, it's one of the number one complaints that we hear. And what's interesting is some parents are a greater risk to their kids' security and privacy than the kids are themselves. Because we're so proud of our kids. We share all of this information about them on our social media accounts. So you want to figure out how to do privacy settings. We created a blog post of a master list on how to put this all together. So some of the questions that parents ask us, well, again, what's the right parental control solution? Well, there isn't just one. You're going to find out it's a whole lot more complex than that. But we need to guard the digital doorways. 1, by being relationship focused. Remember, these are your kids. You love them. Remember that, please. Sometimes it's hard to remember. The location, where they actually are getting online. Is it my house? Is it friend's house? Is it school bus? Is it grandma and grandpa's house? Is it this place? Is it that place? Where are they getting online? What about the wireless access points? Are there filters or monitors on those? And then the devices themselves, because maybe you have a great filter system and monitoring system on your Wi-Fi at your house, but then your kid takes the device and goes somewhere else. That wireless network may not have all the same things. So what travels with your kid on their actual device? And again, that last page has a bunch of resources, and we kind of show them here. There's a variety of opportunities. And if you want to research more about these, some of these have free and paid for features. Some of these are only paid for. Some of these are only free. All right? So you can go, if you go to protectyoungeyes.com/resources, you can do some of that research and try to figure out what's going to be the best work for you. Covenant Eyes works great for a certain age group. Bark works great for social media. Mobisip is a great web browser. Clean Browsing is a DNS kind of a filtering thing that you do in setup. So there's a variety of different things, and these are all these other layers that you can add and put together. None of them on their own is more than what you're paying for Netflix. What about smartphones then? How do we have a device? Because it's not how it used to be. Well, for us growing up, there were pay phones everywhere, right? I wasn't an athlete. I mean, I went undefeated freshman year in football. Go Rams at Rockford. We had a real good run, all right? And if you played for Rockford in the late 90s, we beat you because we won. We only lost 3 times from 7th grade until we graduated. So, but I did that for 1 year. And I didn't work hard enough to get playing time. So I went to where my natural abilities were better fit, on the stage. So I was a 3-sport athlete. I had fall play, winter musical, spring play at Rockford. And then when play rehearsals and musical practices were over, I had to call my parents because I couldn't drive. And so I would go to the payphone and hit 0. And, to make a collect call. Because I'm the firstborn of 6, and my dad is a pastor. We didn't have quarters just to carry around. So, state your name. Doug, pick me up. You have a collect call from Doug, pick me up. Decline. Get in the car and go pick your kid up. For those of you that wasted quarters, you missed out. But there isn't those, and I don't want to give my kid a phone and they have everything that comes with it because it's hard to get a dumb phone anymore. Well, there's a dad who was really frustrated, and so he created a company called Gab Wireless. It doesn't have an app store. It doesn't have a web browser. It's for calling and texting. And it can be set up that it won't even do SMS texting, so you cannot text images. You can only text words. And it looks like a normal full-screen, touch-screen smartphone. That's part of the deal. Like Ryan, when he was in marching band at East Kentwood, after marching band practice, he would call me, and I would get calls at the same time from every number that I've never heard of. And I'm like, what? And I knew it was him because he had a track phone, which looked dumb. He never even wanted to take it out of his pocket to call us, so he would call us on his friends' phones. Hey, can I borrow your phone? I need to call my parents. Even though he had one in his backpack. So this allows some of that shame factor to kind of be alleviated. It looks like all the other phones. Great. At least figure it out, study it out, look it up, see if it works for your family. Maybe it's not the solution for you. That's fine. But just know that stuff exists. So then what's the right amount of screen time or gaming for my kid? Well, there's a variety of things that are going into this. Almost everyone agrees. This is child psychology stuff. This is the World Health Organization. This is everybody who studies juvenile and adolescent brain development. All right? Everyone says less is better. If you're under 2 years old, just about 0 sedentary, sitting there looking at an iPad or an iPhone, tablet, computer, 0. Older than that, under 2 hours a day, 3 hours a day. Because all the studies show that if you spend more than 2 to 3 hours a day, the graphs that they have assembled and put together start going up when it comes to ADD, ADHD, depression, anxiety, suicidal tendencies. And the average amount of time a kid spends on a smart device right now is like 8 to 10 hours. So you wonder about the mental health of our kids and why it's the way that it is because we don't want our kids to be left out. Bill Gates didn't let his kids have a smart device until they're 14. And that's not because he couldn't afford Verizon's bill. It's crazy when you look at the Silicon Valley that a lot of the schools that these people who are designing the devices in all of our pockets send their kids to no-tech or low-tech schools. Why? Because they know that it's harmful for their children. But it's also paying for their college and for the vacation. So then, we wrestle through that in this blog post. Again, another opportunity for you to look at that. So then, here's a good question. What happens if I take it away? It's like, what's a kind of a test that I could do to know if my kid has a problem with screen time? Take it from them. And then watch. What happens next? JD, he knows that Friday, Saturday, and Sunday are show days. And he gets to watch 1 hour of shows on our television because television light is not as harsh on the brain than the screens of your individual devices that you have. So he'd be like, Dad, is today a show day? No, sorry, buddy, it's Tuesday. Okay. Then he goes on and we read more books and we go outside and do stuff. So if you get mad when I take it away, whatever you're playing with, it's gone for a day. Be working through these kinds of things like, again, these relational steps and these technical steps. I want you to again think of the curiosity, the conversations, the co-playing, the caring control. This copy me, I'm going to model what I want you to mirror. The technical steps. Assess how your router is set up. The router is the thing that the internet cable plugs into. All right? And then you have the modem. Some of you may have them separate. Some of you may have them all together. The modem, if you have two things, the modem is what it comes into, and the router is the thing that sends the signal out. All right? Get YouTube under control. Set up clean DNS and block porn. Clean DNS only uses servers on the internet that are tested to be and proven to be porn-free. At a minimum, if you have Android, Family Link. If you have Apple, Screen Time. Set it up. Figure it out. And then if you want to go beyond that, Bark or Covenant Eyes or some of these other solutions that are available to you. So you guys have some homework to do, which is okay. At least you're not writing the textbook. We've already done that. Now you just have to study it. And watch your kids flourish. Stay connected with us through Facebook, Instagram. We are on Pinterest. We have Twitter. We have our website. We have our blog posts. We have our app. So there's a lot of ways that you can stay connected with us. A thing that I would encourage you, we have a resolution in front of the House right now. So we had that video in front of the Senate. They didn't act on it right away. Even though we had some senators from Louisiana that have already put legislation in their state. We had senators from Utah. We had a variety of other different people, but it wasn't priority. We had a couple of representatives kind of jump onto this, and so we have a proposal, a resolution in front of the House that they will be sending out and voting on. And so if you want to follow what we're doing, and that's the Fix App Ratings, you go to fixappratings.com, or if you search the hashtag FixAppRatings on social media, you'll see some of the stuff that we're doing. There's petitions and things that you can sign and you can send, and you can kind of raise awareness and help your local representatives know of this and to act and approve what it is that we're putting forward. It's still crazy to us that these are things that we actually are talking about. Like, stuff that we're doing is actually in front of like the people that you see on C-SPAN. Blows my mind. Thank you so much for letting me be with you. I am here until Eric kicks me out. All right? I love being the guy right before the person setting the alarm and turning off the lights. So if you have questions, I am here to answer any of them. Are there any of you that have a pressing question that you think a lot of people are asking that maybe I can answer publicly? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, and so I can't remember if most of them are usually a 12 plus. Some of them are 4 plus still. But yeah, it's all of these kinds of apps. And part of what we're wanting to do is to challenge COPA and say, your legislation was written in the 90s to protect kids online. We've taken Al Gore's baby and made a whole lot more with it. Again, he claims to have invented the internet, if you didn't know that. And so look at this, and it's changed. And so because of what's there, we're actually proposing that COPA laws actually are increased from 13 to 15 because of some of the brain development, some of those other kinds of things that we just think that 13 and 14-year-olds aren't ready for. I'll get back to you. Go ahead. Yes. Yeah. Yes, Chromebooks. Yes. Correct. And that's why when we talk about conversations, those kinds of things, because it's not the ifs, it's the whens, but you're right, it's hard. Now the educators are giving it to everybody. Yep. Correct. The website, it depends on what kind of filtering and monitoring service they're using. Because they're right in some of the settings, what they end up doing, if we check it up one more level, then stuff that we actually do use in our education is now, like Ryan, he was doing a personality test for school on his device. And he's like, Dad, you need to approve this site because I'm getting behind in my schoolwork, and it blocked this site. And so it becomes difficult in some of those areas. And so going to IT was the exact right thing to do. And see if they're okay with you adding your own stuff onto it. Some of them like, nope, we don't want you adding that kind of thing to our devices. We are owned by the school, and so we don't want you monitoring or modifying them in any way. But it's a great conversation to have, but then also to have conversations, because the app is actually more. In some ways, there's apps that will monitor that, but the website of it, there should be ways that they can monitor and filter that. Covenant Eyes does that pretty successfully. The hard thing is also the intentional misspellings. So then it's like, okay, the word penis didn't come up, but PEN number 1S, that didn't get filtered out. And so there's some of those things that again, sin is deceptive and manipulative, and the devil wants to destroy us and destroy the kingdom of God. Yes, and then yes. So go ahead. Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. We have a whole app review on TikTok. Yep, absolutely. And it's updated regularly. Whenever any of these apps come up with new features, we update our review. Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Apple is very protective of their app developers and don't allow apps to monitor other apps. So like Covenant Eyes, which is a great monitoring and filtering, the Android stuff is a whole lot better because Android's open source. Like if you don't want us to monitor stuff, then develop your app so it can't. Apple is like, no, we have a standard, this is how it is, and we don't want one app controlling another app. And so what some of the things will do, like Bark, their algorithm works off of iCloud. And so it's, even though stuff is instantaneously updated to iCloud, it's actually pulling the files from iCloud and not from the actual device because of how things are set up. And so Apple there's some things natively that it does a whole lot better with the screen time stuff. It does a lot, but it's still limited as of right now. Correct. It is let them have it and have a lot of conversations, or don't let them have it. Very limited. You cannot see all of it. There are parts of it, but not all of it. Like some of the messaging side of it is one, but some of the going through the news feed. Covenant Eyes is also working through some stuff. They created an AI that actually it sits, if you think of it this way, it sits on top of the screen. This is the best way to technologically describe it. It sits on top of the screen, and they have fed billions of pornographic images into their AI so that it can recognize things, and then that goes through. But again, it's because of the ways that some of these developers have these, especially Apple more than Google with Android, they want to be the ones that control. They don't want other people to be the ones that control. And so it's, again, that's why that going back to this, it's important to have this entire relational cycle constantly working. I need to have conversations with my kids. Hey, have you, and they need to know that if the answer to some of these things is going to be hard for us to hear, that we're not going to overreact. To have the conversations, hey, have you ever seen anything pornographic on Snapchat? You have? Okay, how did you respond when you saw that? Those are questions I ask Ryan. Now he's 18, almost 19. It's going to be different conversations when they're younger. But I'm not going to, you have to control your first reaction. And that's hard. That's hard because sometimes Papa Bear and Mama Bear just wants to go and burn it all, including the houses of the people that developed this stuff. It's like there's no way that any of these people. What was interesting, though, is when we met with Snapchat, that some of the representatives were moms, and they had no idea some of the features that were within. They were high enough in the organization that their world didn't actually interact with. And when we were saying that, like, are you serious? Yes. Look, this is how you do that on your app. It was eye-opening to even people who were representing the company. Because it's like, there's no way these people have kids. Or they checked their heart and their conscience a long time ago. So, anyway, thank you so much for letting me be with you. Thank you, Eric, for putting this all together. Like I said, I will be here as long as I need to be. So if you have more private questions you want to ask, cool. Just know that your kids are going to be tearing up the church while you wait.